Washington State Attorney General debate. This is a statewide position. So this is apparently, we're going to find out here what the job is. The Attorney General of Washington is the chief legal officer of the United States of Washington and head of the Washington State Office of the Attorney General. The Attorney General represents clients of the state and defends the public interest in accordance to state law. Now that's the official terminology. What we're going to do here today is take the opportunity to get to know the candidates a little bit better. What we want to do is make sure that you become an informed voter. Why are you running for Washington State Attorney General?
Well, you know, I've been a public sector lawyer most of my career and started my career in the Army, worked for the Department of Justice, had an opportunity to go work down in Olympia and serve as Governor Inslee's general counsel, as his lawyer. And for me, when I got down to Olympia, I just recognized that most of the things that I thought about and cared about in my own life, you know, taxes, public safety, transportation, the quality of my kids' schools, all the things that we worry about just as residents of this state, that most of those decisions are being made at a state and local level and not in Washington, D.C. And I saw what the impact was of having good public servants in those positions. And the work of the Attorney General really matters. I mean, you talked about some of the high-level responsibilities, but I fundamentally believe it's our job to be the advocate for the people and defend people's rights and make government work better. And I've always found it the most rewarding and the most important.
Do you think that it is important that the Attorney General and the governor are aligned in their political, whatever you want to call it, beliefs or
viewpoints? And well, let me say a few different things, because there's a lot in that answer or that question. Then let me just unpack it a little bit. First, I have a lot of respect for what A.G. Ferguson and his team have done over the last 12 years. You know, there are things that they have accomplished in this state that I certainly support and agree with. You know, he created a civil rights division that didn't exist before. He created an environmental enforcement division that didn't exist before. I think he's been an aggressive advocate for consumer protection laws and protecting people. But Bob and I are different people. We are totally different personalities with totally different backgrounds. You know, my background has been mostly in the criminal justice space. That's not his background. Anyone who knows Bob or knows me will know we're very different people. But we share a lot of the same ideas about how to move Washington forward. But I'm going to be my own person and my own type of leader, and I undoubtedly will do things different than Bob. And I don't think you have to be a Democrat or a liberal to have recognized all of the bad policy and illegal actions that were coming from the Trump administration. And you know, so often things get castigated as political decisions or whatnot. You know, we as a state, we were the first state in the country to sue the Trump administration when the Trump Muslim ban came out and banned people or attempted to ban people based on their religion and how they identified.
Where would you fall in protecting the rights, or do you think that is a protection of rights of women to decide what they want to do with their own bodies? And maybe if someone comes here and there are penalties.
5 decades in America, abortion was a constitutional right, a right instilled by Roe v. Wade. And that right had been upheld for decades against challenges. That all changed when President Trump appointed some very conservative justices to the United States Supreme Court, and they passed the Dobbs decision, which removed that right. And since that time, we've seen, I think, 24 states all across the country restrict or eliminate the right to abortion in America, having devastating health effects on women across the United States. Now in Washington, we've had enshrined in state law some fantastic protections guaranteeing the right to abortion for people who want that service here in Washington.
We did have a chance to talk a little bit earlier.
We did.
I enjoyed the conversation.
Likewise.
Again, you know what we want to do here. We're going to give people a chance to know you. Firstly, why are you running for Washington State Attorney General?
Yeah, I see a need for change. You know, it doesn't matter where you live. You see the same pervasive problems. You see drugs, you see homelessness, you see mental issues, and the government is not solving those issues. And of course, those have a secondary effect of crime and public safety. The Attorney General has so much opportunity. Even though he's hyper-focused on civil issues, he has a great amount of resources that he can deploy with prosecutors, with sheriffs, and with defense attorneys, criminal defense attorneys, where he can help those people make sure that folks get the right to a speedy trial. So that's what I look at when I say Washington needs a change now, and that will come through Pete Serrano.
How important is it, or is it not important at all, for the Attorney General to be aligned with the governor of the state of Washington? We don't know who that's going to be yet.
Yeah, you know, I'll say I think it's unfortunate that the Attorney General is a partisan position. The rule of law is intentionally, when you look at Lady Justice, she's blindfolded, right? That means that someone intended to take that sense away so that she perceives what she hears, what's presented to her, and she accepts that. It's not about her perception. And I think the Attorney General should be focused on making sure that it's impartial. So regardless of whether there's an alignment with the governor, excuse me, or some sort of disagreement with the governor, the job is to really disseminate the facts, the evidence, and the law. And that's what the Attorney General should be hyper-focused on. And I'll be honest, you know, you talk about misalignment. I don't think that's where we see our current administration. And I come in here with the intent to be as impartial as possible, as transparent as possible, and bringing the Constitution to the forefront of the analysis of the office.
What are your thoughts on abortion? And this is something very important to a lot of women in this state and women who might come to this state.
As to abortion, you know, that's a settled law. You know, in 1970, the people of Washington brought a referendum, which is the people's voice, because abortion had been criminalized previously. And they said, hey, we want to decriminalize this, which is what they in fact did. And then 21 years later, in 1991, the legislature actually codified it and protected it. So it's not the Attorney General's job to speak for the people, aside from representing their interests. But it's not Pete Serrano's job to say, hey, I agree with this or I disagree with this. The people have spoken. Until they speak again, or the legislature speaks again, the abortion question's settled.
So again, people may